4 matches. That's how many bouts Money in the Stank will have this year, and apparently even cheap seats in the nosebleed sections cost over $200. What a pathetic, cheapskate, low-effort crapathon the Paul Levesque era is turning into. TKO? More like T-gay blow. Anyways, the go-home episode of SmackDown this week opened with stars. That sounds pretty good, right? No. Stars walking around backstage. Every week with this nonsense. We already know they're there. They're advertised for the show. Get some of them into the ring and cut the time wasting. How about that? Zest Rollins, Paul Hayfat, and Rollins' 2 beefy tops that treat him real good made their way down to the ring. Rollins was wearing Russ Geller's shrinking leather pants from that episode of Friends for some reason, in the blue edition though. Fickle, idiot fans chanted Rollins' song, Brun Breaker's back, and for CM Punk as well here, all very quickly, all together really. Make up your minds already. This is what happens when butts invade fandoms, any fandom. Despite being a heel now, Rollins quickly said the town name for that cheap pub.
Oh my goodness, he said Bakersfield, oh, that's where we live. We China.
Rollins cut a boring, repetitive promo that was undercut by chants for Roman Reigns. When's he coming back? Triple Nose needs to finish stripping the guy of every last ounce of big star aura he once had. And again, despite being a heel now, Rollins really went digging for sympathy here when he pointed out he cared about the fans where Reigns didn't. Psychologically, this made little sense, even though, in fairness, it is somewhat true in continuity from his babyface days. Rollins said, no one can stop him, and that got Solo Sikoa, a funnier, more effective heel, frankly, and his rather pear-shaped goons out into play. Sikoa roasted Rollins' group, likening it to a poor man's bloodline, reminding us all of how uncreative and repetitive many angles and setups are at the moment. Sikoa made a fun little dig at Paul Heyman, reminding us of that wonderful, truly delightful angle where they triple powerbombed that penny-pinching cuckoldry enthusiast last year. That was one of my favourite moments of the decade in WWE. Wonderful. I want a sequel to it already. Sikoa, you see, was a babyface on that night. To many fans, myself included, let me tell you. There was a lot of back and forth here. Sikoa, frankly, was more interesting than Rollins, with sharper, more natural line delivery. They teased tension between both Sikoa and Fatu, as per usual, and more interestingly, between Breaker and Fatu, something they teased last year as well. Bron Breakker versus Jacob Fatu at some point could be a barn burner for WWE. 2 hard-hitting heavyweights who actually have some personality and the ability to play to the crowd locking horns. That really should be Sports Entertainment 101, but anyways. Bit of a slug of a segment, really. Solo Sikoa carried it, but that's not really saying that much. Jacob Fatu, Bron Breakker, and Bronson Reed are all quite good wrestlers, but this latest heel Rollins character is just not landing, and Paul Heyman fatigue is becoming a very real thing. Anyways, not Jey Uso charged out and sent Solo and his team packing. Way to make the tough guy heels look strong right there. One guy, the non-Jey Uso of the Uso brothers, sends them all running for their lives. Brilliant. An ad break ensured we did not get to see the beginning of Jimmy Uso and Jeff Cobb, or whatever the hell his new name is. When we finally got to see the match in action, Uso was in control. Cobb made a comeback and started shouting at Uso that he could still rejoin Sikoa and his friends. Have these 2 even met before 2 weeks ago? And it really makes no sense. They're talking as if it wasn't Sikoa himself who eliminated Uso from the group last year. Despite having many crowd-pleasing strongman moves at his disposal, Jeff Cobb worked slow-paced heel psychology here, grounding Uso down with strikes and mat time. Another ad break, of course. A lot of back and forth in this match. Cobb seems oddly reserved in the ring here compared to his New Japan days. This was much more about Jimmy Uso's babyface journey than Cobb, with the story revolving around the gutsy Uso brother overcoming Cobb's strength to ultimately outwit him with a surprise roll-up for the win, even after Sikoa and Fatu tried to help their new pal. Again, Sikoa and his team are starting to look like goofs. Singles Jacob Fatu is booked like a wrecking ball with his US Championship, but the moment he's hanging with these two, he stumbles into Clownsville. More tension was teased in that regard, of course. Maybe one of these days, here's a funny idea, Triple Nose can actually pull the trigger on Fatu going his own way. Cub losing this early into his WWE run ought to tell you how big the company's plans are for him moving forwards. He's basically just Tama Tonga's replacement, so Sikoa can have an errand boy from New Japan on hand. Zelina Vega was wandering around backstage. I couldn't care less. What I did notice, though, the graphic for her name came up and it just said Zelina. She's lost her surname, apparently. Hopefully she can lose that US title next. Damian Priest again told Jacob Fatu he's coming for his belt. Eventually. Neither guy qualified for Money in the Bank. Why not run this potentially very good match on the PLE and bump that pitiful card up to 5 matches? That used to be the Triple Nose special 5 matches, now it's 4. What's going on here? Anyway, it's a nothing segment, which is a shame because these two could probably have a very good feud and build to an excellent match if they were given the chance. Zelina Vega rediscovered her surname ahead of her match with Pie Eater Glutton next. This brawl between two not particularly over women's talents went for over 10 minutes, it felt like 45. In a desperate bid to get the match over, Piper Glutton went flying headfirst into a steel chair in the corner. Look, the bump looked very good, but is it really worth risking your brain and neck like that for a match this minute? Chelsea Green was actually getting quite over when she had the US belt. Why her and her silly little secret Hervis group have been turned into useless chumps in service of a never-over cosplayer who threw a great big hissy fit when PG WWE had the audacity to not want their talent associated with a filthy platform infested with dumb simps like Only Turds is anyone's guess. Oh, that reminds me, earlier on when Zelina Vega was looking for her surname backstage, Julia said something about wrestling her or something, I don't even remember. Julia's just not that interesting on the main roster, let's be honest here. Anyways, after defeating wrestling's #1 diabetic talent here, Vega was celebrating when Julia came out again. Anyone with half a brain would know this meant trouble, that Julia's going to land one of those silly headbutts or whatever. But Vega, for some reason, thought everything would be fine. Instead, she got clubbered. What do you want me to say? This sucked. A nothing segment next, which is very disappointing given the people involved. Cody Rhodes, Jimmy Uso, and Jey Uso stood about, asking Jey Uso if he was okay. Waste of time. Could have done something interesting with these three sharing a camera, given their history, but oh well. Aleister Black cut an okay taped promo, trying very hard to be menacing. Look, supernatural and occult gimmicks rarely work. They are almost too silly, if such a phrase can be applied to pro wrestling. The Undertaker, and to a much lesser extent Kane, worked. But those guys were big, menacing, super heavyweights, and in Undertaker's case, a master showman with an intense brawling style that only added further to his intimidation factor. Unfortunately, despite his talent, a 5'0" kickboxer we just saw in AEW's midcard for several years just doesn't hit the same way, regardless of how many tattoos he gets or how much eye makeup he slaps on. Anyways, this promo was directed towards LA Knight, and it left me wondering if he'll perhaps cost Knight the Money in the Bank match this weekend, because there's always some caveat for poor LA Knight. He can never have nice things. And in a spot of very, very worrying news for LA Knight, he really had to push this crowd to go all in on his yeah chant during his pre-match promo. 2 years ago, this guy was one of the most over talents in the entire industry. Now, WWE's relentless push to make fans see him as mid-card only is paying off. Still over, of course, but the star aura he briefly enjoyed has been largely snuffed out. Knight hinted at a future feud with Seth Rollins. Probably nothing, but it would at least be a new rivalry, if it did happen. We've never seen those two in the ring together, far as I'm aware. At least not in their current iterations. Ad break, of course. Here's what's odd though. Before the break, Knight vs. Black was about to start. After the break, we got their lockup. First lockup, seemingly. What were they doing during the ad break? Commercials and pacing are an absolute disaster zone during WWE shows at the moment. Speaking of that first lockup, endless locking up ensued, and no one cared. They've cooled Knight off a lot, unfortunately. Black is just not that over here, there, or anywhere. Maybe that'll change with time, but for now it's not looking good. The match heated up a little bit from there with some faster paced back and forth. A springboard moonsault from Black got
This is awesome
chants from these backdrop people in the audience. Look, it's a cool move. I'm not criticizing Aleister Black. It looked good. But this is awesome was a chant that used to be reserved for top-notch action. And now the butt invasion means that chant has no meaning or value whatsoever. LA Knight had the audacity, I was offended personally by this, to hit Black with the safety-first PG WWE version of the Burning Hammer that Tyler Rex used to hit back when he still had balls. Just to be clear, the Burning Hammer was Kenta Kobashi's ultimate finishing maneuver back in All Japan and Pro Wrestling Noah. Kenta Kobashi, one of the absolute greatest wrestlers ever. And he would dump them directly on their head and neck. It was quite shocking to see. He did it very rarely. This silly inverted AA in WWE just doesn't hit the same way. I'm not saying they should do the real Burning Hammer, I'm just saying they shouldn't rip it off. Anyways, what was I talking? Oh yeah, Tyler Rex and his balls. So when he still had those, he used to hit that move. Back when he was a husband and a father with a successful fitness business, and not someone kids would instead prefer stayed home for PTA meetings. You know how scared kids are of severe embarrassment. Something where you can just see his wife's light, leaving her eyes as she pretends to be okay with it. A 250-pound bodybuilder trying to be a little princess. Don't do steroids, kids. You never know what the after effects on your body and mind and hormones might lead you to do in later life. Seth Rollins came bursting in, and he ended this decent overall TV bout, planting Knight with the curb stomp. Maybe a Rollins-Knight feud is on the horizon after all. Braun Breaker flattened Aleister Black with a spear, who, weirdly, this was very interesting actually, came in to help Knight. Did not see that coming. Perhaps Aleister Black is meant to be a tweener character, an anti-hero kind of deal, more than a straight-up spooky villain. Anyways, WWE are trying very hard to give us some NWO vibes with Rollins and his meaty toy boys tonight, but the star power and star presence just isn't there. Say what you will about the Hulkster and Big Daddy Cool and the late Scott Hall, but those guys oozed star presence back at the peak of the NWO. Jade Cargill talked about some stuff, and then Charlotte Flair was there. Wow, I don't care. Chad Gable also had a quick promo. Chad Gable is very good, and his El Grande Americano gimmick, while silly, is also quite funny. But no one cares about this Worlds Collide show. Oh my goodness. No. Please no. A Tiffy Time segment. Has anyone thought of giving Tiffany Stratton a mute gimmick? It'd be delightful for anyone who has the ability to hear sound. Stratton squeakily droned on about Money in the Bank without saying anything of actual note or intrigue or importance or interest. Rhea Ripley came storming out then, still trying to nail down a man's strut, and said a bunch of nothing on the mic, something about Mammy on top or I don't know. Stephanie Vacca's truly delightful ass was out next. Oh, I see. It's going to be one of those segments where all the ladder people come out, so we can go straight into their tag match, even though we just had a promo still going on in the ring. Brilliant! No, actually, that is good, because it means we don't have to hear Tiffany Stratton talk anymore. Thank goodness. Women's tag up next, like I just said. Why am I saying that again? Oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Joe Tessitore, very disrespectful, ate up commentary time to promote Stephanie McMahon's hideous podcast show no one listens to. Piss Angel will be the next guest. That poor man's David Blaine, who had a nervous breakdown that one time Perez Hilton mucked his lame Vegas show. Oh, it kills me I know this incredibly rubbish information. Let me put it to you super bluntly, alright? No one's interested in a post-wall Nepo baby who poisoned WWE with her crap ideas for 20 plus years, talking to some has-been rabbit-in-a-hat guy no one cares about anymore. Just call the action, Joe Tessitore, or you'll be the latest in a long line of play-by-play guys to get replaced on the quick in modern WWE. Stephanie Vacca's Devil's Kiss is a very over move, to the shock of absolutely no one. This was a good women's match, to be fair, a lot of rapid-fire action and setups throughout. Great spot where Ripley went for the Riptide and Roxanne Perez countered into a slick DDT. Ripley's bump and sell of that counter was truly excellent and exactly how you make a move look like it matters. Really great stuff from both of them. Naomi just abandoning her team led to the finish, with the babyfaces demolishing Roxanne Perez. Naomi being traitorous scum to everyone she encounters is only adding further to this psycho character of hers, one that has gotten her more over than possibly any other point in her career at this rate. Now, lately I've been roasting Roxanne Perez for very immature reasons in these reviews. I'm not going to do that today. Apparently some sick freak was trying to dox this lady and had some X account up vowing to take her out, like assassinate her, presumably. What kind of world do we live in here? As if bot fans weren't bad enough, you have these bloodthirsty mongoloids, these insane retards trying to assassinate wrestlers. Disgusting. People like that, let's just execute them. Wastes of air and space. And it's not just Perez who's had a situation like that recently either. Some half-wit loon was stalking Liv Morgan recently. And there's another one on X now vowing to mutilate and take out Dominic Mysterio. Freaks. Hopefully the talents are okay and well guarded, while these subhuman mongos are running around. Back to the show. Back in 2005, there was a neat segment where Triple H and Ric Flair were discussing Batista. This was way back when they were setting up the Batista-Triple H feud. One of the best feuds ever, if I do say so myself. Anyways, Triple Nose mentioned how Batista is dumb and easy to manipulate. And then it turned out Batista was listening by the door. Whoops. Right, so that segment was repeated here for Solo Sikoa's budding tensions with Jacob Fatu, much like last year when AJ Styles did a knockoff of Mark Henry's excellent, classic 2013 fake retirement promo. No original ideas, just reruns and time wasting. Triple Nose and his team of talentless script goofs have no imagination, no innovation. Just ripping off the good old days when Vince McMahon, a guy they all claim to be better than, was in charge. Look, I'm sure Sikoa versus Fatu will be fun when it happens, but this was incredibly uninspired. The Wyatt Sucks did some cringy bore-first taped promo where we're meant to believe career jobber Job Dallas could be a threat to anyone. Montez Ford was then booked to humiliate himself by saying that he and everyone else in the tag division is scared of these smoke and mirrors clowns. Why exactly Ford has had to spend most of his prime on the sidelines, in the undercard, in the doubles division, is a mystery. This guy had, and still has of course, all the tools to be a big singles babyface star, had WWE bothered to give him a proper shot. Penter and Mr Incomprehensible, I don't speak a single language on earth properly, and Jobbe, out next to wrestle the Creed brothers. On paper this could have been very good, both teams are very work rate friendly. At just under 8 minutes they tried to get a lot of spots in, even when they were undercut by yet another ad break. Do ad breaks during the entrances. We don't need to see these entrances measure for measure every week. We want to see the actual action. Anyways. Oh, I'm getting very worked up here. Anyways. Chad Gable ran in to try and take Penter's mask off. El Shorto del Midgeto then ran in to stop him. I distinctly remember many WWE fans making fun of this guy when he was briefly in AEW, and when he was in GCW, an awful promotion that no one should watch. And now they're all gonna pretend they love him, because he took a photo with Papa H, or some other nonsense. Anyways, Penta got the win with the Canadian-Mexican Destroyer on one of those Creed guys. Rollins and his close, personal, male friends came out then to beat up these guys as well. This is just getting a bit silly now, we get it. He wants to make a statement ahead of Money in the Bank, enough already. Paul Heyman, scum of the earth, in kayfabe and more importantly out of kayfabe, even by wrestling industry standards. This guy is an appalling, cash-grabbing sleaze who led a whole generation of B-tier wrestlers to ruin with FCW back in the day. Out now to give us a silly cheap heat promo, like any other of the 10,000 plus he's done in this style over the years. There was so much wrong with this, I don't even know where to start. Heyman called everyone Baker's bitches, and then soon after wondered why people were booing him. He goes saying the Rollins faction is the future when Heyman's nearly 60, and his heart could explode at any moment, look at the state of him. Rollins is nearly 40, has bum knees, and has discussed retiring in a few years. Bronson Reed, again, nearly 40, a lot of wear and tear from a punishing career thus far, including a career-threatening injury last year. This future thing, really only applies to Bron Breakker, who's still in his 20s and still a somewhat fresh face on the show. The longer he remains a muted heel henchman, though, the less that remains the case. Heymon called them the vanguards of the destiny of the WWE, whatever the hell that even means. Oh boy, what are the odds they call this faction the Vanguard? Broken Matt Hardy says hi. The funniest part here was Heyman saying that if Rollins wins Money in the Bank, he will change the industry and propel it forwards. Okay. Every time Seth Rollins has fronted a big show, especially when he's champ, ratings have died a painful death. His more recent World Heavyweight title run had more goodwill due to his babyface turn being well received, but that's been scuppered now, obviously. Rollins could win every title under the sun, and the cold hard fact is he will never be Roman Reigns, or John Cena, or even his pal Cody Rhodes when it comes to pulling a crowd. Anyway, speaking of Rhodes, I have never been happier to hear his song hit than when it interrupted this abysmal, lard-ass greaseball and his incessant Rollins glazing. Now, there is a very interesting feud here if WWE revisit Rhodes versus Rollins, from enemies to friends to redeemed Rollins turning heel again. Rhodes is a logical babyface foil for the new Rollins team, and matches with Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker could be pretty good. For now, though, we just got a tease of that before mid-card Jey Uso's music hit. Ad break, and with no explanation whatsoever, Rollins and his harem of heavyweight tops had left. Bit of a letdown. Rhodes cut a basic promo on the absolute state of heel John Cena. Cena turning heel would've, could've, should've been the biggest angle of the decade, and while the man himself has done some strong promos as a villain, particularly before WrestleMania, the character overall is messy and nonsensical, repackaging someone who, in kayfabe, was one of the gutsiest, bravest, most never-say-die babyfaces ever into a whiny, petulant, sensitive old fool, pretty much overnight, who's now got a team with the ever-detestable Logan Paul to try and at least maintain some cheap heat week to week. Rhodes made an utterly dead-on-arrival comment saying Cena next to Paul was like Michael Hayes next to the Hardy Boys. Crickets. For anyone wondering, Hayes briefly managed the Hardys back in the Attitude Era. Was he calling Cena old here, Cody Rhodes? Was he calling Logan Paul a modern-day equivalent of the Hardys? This guy's trash talk sucks! What even is that as a comment? It makes no sense. Cena and Paul have nothing in common with Michael Hayes and the Hardy Boys, and this crowd of butts who'd clap like seals to any old nonsense finally took a stand by sitting on their hands against this crap content. Throughout this cumbersome, monotonous promo, Rhodes would pause so Jey Uso could lead the sheep in bleating "Youth," slowing it down even further, with Rhodes additionally looking out insecurely to the crowd to see if they were popping and reacting to his lame comments. Sometimes they did, but obviously, as we've mentioned with the Michael Hayes thing, sometimes they did not. Awful promo from him here. Rhodes has his moments when he's serious and in peril, but these attempts at being a fun, trash-talking, cool guy just don't fit at all. Jey Uso took the mic then and rambled incoherently, shrilly about 4 letters, 1 word. But before he could try and do a little better than the Roadster, which, let's face it, Jey Uso can barely speak English half the time, it was never going to happen, John Cena's music hit, thank goodness. Business picked up a bit here as John Cena's entrance was used to distract the babyface goobers from Logan Paul jumping them. Cena cut an enraged promo, basic but much more compelling than Rhodes's pathetic reference humour. Cena promised, as always, to ruin the fans' dream of what WWE is forever. I get he's healing it up, but in reality, little late to the party, John boy. Vince McMahon basically dropped WWE in the toilet in the 2010s, sadly, and Triple Nose and TKO are already in the process of flushing it for good. Cena calling Paul the last face of WWE was genuinely very funny, and also strangely dramatic, like Armageddon is around the corner or something, and these really will be the last days of fake fighting. Cena tried a little Jack Nicholson on us all, rolling with the "you can't handle the truth" from A Few Good Men. I didn't think that was meant to be a Nicholson impression. I don't know what I was going for there. And Cena also in doing that was giving us a cheeky nod to the ridiculous departure of R-Truth from the company recently, who, despite being over well-known and involved in a major angle mere weeks ago, was dropped. Show ended with Cena and Paul holding up the world titles, maybe hinting that the Maverick's quest to ruin another singles belt isn't as done as we'd all hoped it was after his absolute stinker with Jey Uso back at Saturday night's main event. Overall, this was a very lazy, basic, go-home show for a PLE that looks utterly pathetic on paper and is missing an obscene amount of stars, all while charging schmuck fans an absolute boatload in the process. Disgraceful.